Hi there, this is a short video about prompt morphing in ComfyUI using the Dream project animation nodes. Prompt morphing or prompt interpolation, that's the kind of effect I show in this video. This video doesn't really look all that nice, but you can see it's morphing between 4 different seasons. And that's done by shifting the weights of the prompt in ComfyUI, and we have the nodes for doing that in the Dream project animation nodes. So this is the block where I do the prompt morphing. There are a lot of parts to it, but it's actually fairly simple. So if you have looked at the earlier videos about this node pack, then you have seen this frame counter. So this tells us where we are in the animation, and it drives these curve nodes. So each curve node here is what I call a triangle event curve. And the triangle event curve, that is something that it is at minimum value, and then all of a sudden it reaches within the curve width, where it starts rising up until the max value, and that's reached at the center point. So you can see here center seconds. Here it's 2 seconds, 4 seconds, this one at 6 seconds. And then it falls back down to the minimum value within that half of the width. So 3.5 seconds rise, 3.5 seconds fall, and that's the event curve. And here I've set the width to 7 seconds, so that means that the first curve is actually has already started when we start the animation at 0 seconds. But the later ones, for instance this one, it will kick in at around half a second. And this last one here, it will start appearing in our prompts at 2.5 seconds. So that's the actual curves. So we have a minimum value here set to 0. It will reach the max value 1 and fall back to the minimum value. And with each curve, we have a prompt builder block or node, and each one of these contains words that we want to put a weight on. So these ones here, they're the constant ones. So that's basically my negative prompt, my positive prompt, and the other ones here are controlled by curves. You can see here that each one of these is just, it feeds into the next one. So you chain them together with a partial prompt in between. So here it's a partial prompt into the next one, and this is a partial prompt. And each time we just add more words with a weight until the last one here, where we finalize the prompt, and the outputs here are the positive and negative prompts. And since I've added here a log file, we can actually have a look at the output from this. So you can see here all this, all these seasons with summer and green grass and autumn rain and so on. We can have a look at the log file, and then we can see here frame 1. It starts out with summer, for instance, having a value of 0.67. It rises for a while, and down here we can see we have both summer and autumn in the same prompt, but summer is around 0.9 and autumn is, well, that's just a fraction of that, so it doesn't really affect the overall image very much yet. But you can see here the values are constantly shifting, and at the end here, this isn't really, it's just frame 16 of 150. And here autumn is 0.02, while summer is 1.1. So summer is still the most important part here of this prompt, but as the curves shift, autumn will become more important, and we get images that reflect autumn from our diffusion process, or that's the thought at least. So that's prompt morphing. The format here is compatible with ComfyUI. So you don't really need to do anything else other than feed these into whatever you use in your process to handle prompting. So here a clip encode, and you do it just like you would with your typical static prompts. All of these blocks, what they actually do is just produce these text prompts with the right weight values. And from that, then it's just stuff you have seen before. This is loading the previous frame, and we put a ControlNet. This ControlNet uses both our seed image and the previous frame to apply. One of them is for depth, and the other one is a line art. And of course, you can try a lot of different variations. I would argue that the animation I did there wasn't really all that successful, but this is just to show basically how I would do things while keeping it reasonably simple. Then we have a new part here that I haven't shown before, and that's alignment of brightness and contrast. So we now have the abilities since before to sample images into palettes. We can compare the palettes, and a new part here is that we get a contrast multiplier. So that basically tells us the difference in contrast between our reference and the palette we're giving it. So A and B in this case, those are our seed value and our previous frame. And with that, we can do we can do a brightness multiplier, contrast multiplier, and we apply those to the previous frame to ensure that we keep about the same level of brightness and contrast throughout the animation. Down here, we're using a curve to do denoise. Not really necessary, but I find that it can be useful sometimes to have a variation on the denoise, so it's not always at the same level. You get instead quick peaks where you allow the picture to morph a bit faster, and then you have a bit of stability, and you have these spikes of faster morphing. Not that I can say that it made a huge difference in the animation we saw, but it's at least something I've been using quite often, especially with music, because then you can put that quick part when the morphing is more active on a beat. So for instance, the first beat of a measure. Then it's just your typical stuff here. It's upscale and saving. So that's prompt morphing, and I don't think I have a lot more to add to that, except maybe that I wouldn't use this to create the final video. I don't think the effect is good enough as it is, but you can use this, for instance, with in painting. Say you use prompt morphing on a dancing man, for instance, or you use prompt morphing on without painting. So you're doing the motion that I showed in a previous video, and you do the prompt morphing on the new stuff that you add to the image without painting. With that, you can create nice effects where you're moving from one kind of scenery into another over time. Well, that's it. Hope this is useful to you. Thanks for listening.